Picture this. You're sitting in your car. The engine's off, the driveway's pitch dark, you're not scrolling on your phone, and honestly, you're not really thinking about anything at all. You're just sitting there, in the quiet. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to take a deeply personal clinical journey right into the architecture of your own nervous system. It's a pretty profound question when you really think about it. You've been home for, 11 minutes now? So why haven't you gone inside yet? Maybe it was a crazy long workday, or hey, maybe it was a dinner with people you genuinely love. It doesn't actually matter. You're sitting there in the dark, and it doesn't feel lonely at all. Actually, it feels like the very first real breath you've taken all day. You literally just need this moment before you can go back inside, before you have to be on again. For the longest time, society has sold us this massive myth. You know the narrative. It tells us that needing alone time means you're antisocial, you're difficult, or maybe your wiring is just somehow broken. But the actual biological reality? Your need for solitude is absolutely not just a preference. It is a necessary physiological regulation system. It's a brilliant biological adaptation, definitely not a character deficit. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the science, specifically the polyvagal theory. Mapped out by neuroscientist Stephen Porges, this theory looks at our autonomic nervous system. That's the system operating entirely below our conscious awareness. So if you constantly feel this overwhelming urge to pull away from people, it is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. We can scientifically validate exactly what your body is trying to do. There are 3 primary states in that system. First up is the ventral vagal state. This is where you feel totally safe, connected, and social. But for a lot of us, social environments demand such incredibly high-resolution processing that our system simply gets overwhelmed. And when that happens, bam, we drop into sympathetic activation. That's your classic fight-or-flight mode. Cortisol shoots up. Suddenly, the room feels way too loud. And if you can't escape that overstimulation, your biology basically forces you into the third state, dorsal vagal. Complete shutdown. You just go numb. You might physically be in the room, but your nervous system has completely collapsed inward just to survive. And here is the absolute crucial takeaway. Higher resolution comes at a higher cost. For a huge portion of the population, extended social interaction just consumes massive amounts of mental processing power. So that total exhaustion you feel after a party, it isn't a weakness. Solitude is literally just your nervous system recharging the massive amount of energy it just spent trying to decode the world around you. This brings us to the first of 4 distinct architectures of solitude. Type 1, the restorative isolator, or as we'll call them, the recharger. This type is driven by something called sensory processing sensitivity. Research actually shows that roughly 20% of the population has a nervous system that simply does not filter out social information. If this sounds like you, you know exactly what I mean. You absorb everything. Every tiny microexpression, every slight shift in tone, every bit of unspoken tension in a room. And because you're taking all of that in, your battery drains incredibly fast. So for you, solitude isn't some luxury, it is literal essential system maintenance. Now, if you're a recharger, here is your daily protocol. Step 1, do not wait until your battery is completely at 0. Stop waiting for a total system crash to take a break. Step 2, you need to schedule predictable, guilt-free solitude windows into your day. Make it a routine. And step 3, radically lower your environmental input. Dim those lights, silence the phone notifications. You need to engineer your recovery intentionally. Okay, moving right along to type 2, the hypervigilant withdrawer, also known as the protector. For the protector, the root cause here is an over-calibrated amygdala. That's the brain's main threat detection center. Often due to past experiences, usually involving some kind of emotional unpredictability, the nervous system actually misidentifies social unpredictability as actual physical danger. So other people register subcortically as potential threats. When a protector withdraws, it's not just a simple preference for peace and quiet, it's a trauma-informed safety response. Solitude becomes the only place where their nervous system finally stops scanning the horizon for danger. If this resonates with you at all, here is your protocol. First, you've got to ask yourself a brutally honest question. Am I resting right now or am I hiding? Step 2, stop confusing your emotional armor with true freedom. And step 3, don't just fortify your isolation. You want to build neuroceptive safety slowly. Try gradually returning to connection with just one truly safe person.
Next up is type 3, the deep processor, or the sensor.
Now, this one is driven by the default mode network, or DMN. The DMN is your brain's internal processing system. It handles the big stuff: creative synthesis, future planning, really complex problem solving. But here's the catch with the DMN. It literally requires the suppression of external stimuli to come online. You just cannot be actively paying attention to a busy external social environment and running your DMN at the same time.
So for the deep processor, solitude is definitely not downtime. It is the literal operating environment required for peak cognitive work. I mean, just think about our modern world for a second. Open plan offices, constant collaborative Slack messages, nonstop connectivity. These environments actively deprive the deep processor of the quiet mental workspace their brain fundamentally needs to function. If you are a deep processor, your protocol is really all about architectural design. Step 1. Recognize that highly collaborative spaces are going to exhaust you and diminish your output. It's just how you're wired. Step 2. Secure uninterrupted internal space. And step 3. Fiercely protect your time for DMN activation. Guard your quiet hours like they are the absolute most important meetings on your calendar. Because honestly, for your brain, they are. Finally, we have type 4, the dissociative retreater, which we'll call the exile. The neurological root for this type involves the alexithymia spectrum, which affects roughly 10% of the population. For this type, reading relational subtext, things like tones, intentions, moods, it just doesn't happen intuitively. It requires active, highly conscious cognitive translation. Imagine every social interaction feeling like you're translating a foreign language in real time. It is incredibly effortful. So, solitude isn't necessarily about enjoying being alone. It's simply a desperately needed relief from the sheer exhausting labor of relational decoding. For the exile, your protocol definitely requires some courage. Step 1, you have to stop romanticizing your isolation as some kind of badge of honor, and please stop calling loneliness a personality trait. Step 2, work on building a framework to map your own internal emotional data rather than just withdrawing entirely. And step 3, seek contact, not just insight. You genuinely need a human link, someone who gets a little closer than the rest of the world. When we look at this and synthesize these architectures side by side, the patterns become super clear. The recharger needs system recovery from sensory overload. The protector needs threat reduction because of an overactive amygdala. The deep processor requires that vital cognitive space to fire up their default mode network. And the exile needs relief from the exhausting translation of the alexithymia spectrum. Your specific behavior maps precisely to hard biological science. Which brings us to the master key, the underlying cost of high resolution. I want you to really hear this. You are not broken. You are simply running more sophisticated software on more demanding hardware. Whether you're absorbing more sensory data, running a more advanced threat monitoring protocol, activating a highly productive internal cognitive network, or performing intense real-time emotional translation, you are paying a metabolic cost that average hardware just doesn't have to pay. Your need for solitude is absolutely not a bug in your programming. It is the necessary cost of a highly complex operating system. So I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Are you going to keep forcing yourself to function differently, relying on thin willpower to fight your own autonomic nervous system? Or will you finally stop apologizing and start architecting a life that actually works with your biology? The choice of how you build your daily architecture is entirely up to you. Thanks so much for exploring this with me today.